You are now entering the Horror Sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And this week we're also joined by writer Nick Morris, who wrote the 2020 action thriller Becky. And you executive produced the sequel Wrath of Becky. Those movies star Lulu Adams, Kevin James, Joel McHale, Sean William Scott. If you're unfamiliar, first off, get with it. Both these movies are fantastic. We can't recommend them more. So go track them down and watch them because they're great. So basically, spunky and rebellious Becky tries to reconnect with her father during a weekend getaway, but the trip soon turns for the worse when convicts on the run, led by the merciless Dominique, suddenly invade the home. And the sequel takes things just a little bit further.
Yes, it does. It sure does. And it's Lulu Wilson, by the way. I think you said Adams, but
I said Lulu Adams. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Adams Family, the Hellbender movie.
oh, okay,
I've seen that. Yeah.
okay, nice. I still haven't watched Wednesday yet. Anyway, I digress. Nick, so we've all watched the Becky films. I remember, just to have a little bit of history from what I've read up on it. I remember it coming out during COVID, and it was interesting because, everything was shutting down right when it was coming out, but the drive-ins magically, we thought Joe Bob had the last drive-in, but now all the drive-ins started coming back because we can't be a civilization without our by God movie theater experience. So, and Becky was actually, did I read this correctly? It was actually the #1 movie at least in the US. I don't know what it did in Canada for 2 weeks on the drive-in circuit.
That's right. Yep. Thanks to COVID it was in terms of Becky and its release. It helped in some ways and it hurt in some ways, but definitely the fact that the studios weren't putting anything out, all the theaters were closed, and the drive-ins were doing good business, and we managed to get it into the drive-ins. That it got more attention than it otherwise would have, for sure, as a result.
Well, that's great. I'm gonna take it back to the beginning because I'm also an aspiring screenwriter, and I'm trying to get my first movie kind of off the ground right now, which is a slog when you don't have a Kevin James or somebody attached to it, especially. But man, I'm just so interested. I heard that you had won a horror screenplay contest or a film festival contest, something like that. Tell me how you got into writing and how this Becky thing come to be.
Well, as far as screenwriting goes, I really, I got serious about it maybe 10 years ago. I had, some ideas rattling around that I had to get out, and kind of taught myself screenplay format, with books and websites and reading scripts and stuff. And one of the websites that I spent a lot of time on, just learning the craft, was a website called Script Shadow. And at least at that time, they still do it once in a while, but back then it was a regular thing where, like every other weekend, I think they would have like a showdown, a script showdown, and the guy that runs the blog would choose. You would send your scripts to him, and he would pick 5 scripts, post them online, and then the community, which is a pretty big, robust community, right? Would vote on them, would read, as much or as little of, all of these scripts that they wanted, and vote for the one they liked the best. So that's at the time that Becky was after. Originally it was called There Was a Little Girl, and I had finished it not long before, maybe a few weeks before I kind of threw it into that arena, and it won its weekend, and so the winning script gets featured the following weekend with a review and stuff like that, right? And just exposure, and that's actually how it was discovered. It was a producer got in touch with me that very same weekend about it, and it all happened pretty quickly after that.
That's awesome. So how many scripts did it take before you got to Becky? How many scripts was Becky in?
Becky was my second completed script.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's really good stats. So what was the process of once the studio got involved? Like how quickly was the timeline on that and getting actors attached and whatnot?
The deal happened quickly, and then we go into, like, as part of my contract there were a couple of rounds of rewrites, and so there's a few months there, and then after that they start to bring in, like, the directors came on board, and when they came on board, of course, every entity that comes to the table has things, the notes and things that they want to change about it. The directors came in with they brought in a couple of other writers that they'd worked with to execute their changes, and from the time I sold it, I think, to the time cameras were rolling was like about 2 years.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it goes. It's like, flat out, and everything's, go, 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 go. And then it's wait and wait and wait and wait,
Yeah.
and
Hurry up and wait. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So it felt fast, and it also felt like a lifetime, but, yeah.
So what was your involvement on the Wrath of Becky that just come out earlier this year? I know you're labeled as executive producer. That could mean a lot of things in the film industry, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. With the sequel, when that finally came around, and there was, quite a bit of development involved with that. And new directors were brought in to direct the sequel, and they wrote the script for it themselves. And so my involvement really was, I was part of the development process. We talked story, and tried to hammer things out like that. And yeah, that's that was basically it. I didn't get to go to the set on the second one. They shot that one in New Jersey. The first one shot here in Canada. So I made it a point to be there. But yeah, my role as executive producer was pretty much limited to early development, story stuff, right?
So did you already write like a full screenplay that people kind of worked from at some point, or just kind of a treatment type thing?
I had a treatment written for the sequel, and it was obvious, early on, that the movie that they wanted to make was not necessarily the same movie that I wanted to make. So I pushed for the things that I felt were important, and that I wanted to see with it, but ultimately, I don't own the property anymore. It's out of my hands. So
Yeah. Yeah. We might cycle back around to that because I'm curious of your opinions on the ending of Wrath of Becky, but I'm going to pass off for right now.
So I was curious, I really loved the movie Becky. I thought it was great. I like the sequel too. It had its odd stuff in it for sure. The ending,
it's
for
fun.
sure. Yeah, the ending
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of like a Matthew Vaughn movie, like a very like self-aware stinger type thing. But yeah, I was wondering with the first movie when you were writing it, what your inspirations as far as the story, the films that inspired you. When I watched it, I don't know why I thought of this, but it reminded me kind of like if you took Home Alone and mixed it with like The River Wild. If you remember that movie with Kevin Bacon,
Nice.
That kind of vibe. Yeah. I don't know what you think. But yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's, when the idea hit me originally, it was, um, a violent R-rated Home Alone, right? And it actually, I was driving at the time, and I had a long car ride, and kind of, it just kind of hammered the whole story out during the course of this drive, and basically went home and immediately started typing it up. But yeah, Home Alone by way of Last House on the Left. I don't know, and there's some Die Hard in there too, right?
No, very cool.
Um,
Yeah, I definitely could see that. I mean, the Last House on the Left, that's probably more fitting with this movie, right? There's a lot of violence, and I really love the character Apex. I thought that was really cool. When you wrote that, I know these things, it depends on the phase of how they make the movie, but did you envision like someone like the actor? It's Kurrigan from WWF, but his name's Robert Malay, I think.
yeah, that's
Did
right.
you think of that, or were you just kind of like, I want a big guy? Like, what was your thought when you wrote that?
Basically, I knew he was going to be a big, intimidating dude, right? And beyond that, you never know how how the casting process is going to go, and it's the casting for Becky was interesting too. But when I finally did get like the main cast list, and I saw that Robert was playing Apex, I was like, that's amazing. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a wrestling fan too, and Robert actually lives not far from me. We went to the drive-in together to watch Becky when it was released in 2020. So yeah, he was kind of a dream come true.
That's awesome. Yeah, he well, I noticed he does like a almost like a choke slam on Becky, and I was like, when I saw that, I was like, I bet the writer's a fan of wrestling. I just had that feeling. When you wrote that character and the way she is in this movie, I mean, it's obviously over the top in a lot of things, but it really kind of were you trying to tap into like this idea of fight or flight with PTSD and trauma? Because it seems like she had trauma and she has it again, but it's like she just decides, fuck it, like I'm fighting, I'm standing up to these people.
Yeah, really, and I mean, you know, Apex was important for um, kind of the notion like you know how is a monster like that created, and what uh, you know what kind of things can happen to someone to push them to these kind of extremes, right? And they have a brief exchange in the movie where he sort of tries to warn her about potentially the path that she's headed down, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if you, I mean, I'm sure you've been asked this, and I'm sure you probably can't say anything, but the key, right? The MacGuffin of the film. It's in the first film, it's in the second film. I guess two questions, and I'll pass on after this because I know we probably have a lot to ask. But one, do you, in your mind, have an idea of what that actually would mean? And two, do you know what they're actually doing with it in the series? I'm assuming you obviously can't answer two, but I just was
Yeah,
curious.
the answer to the first question is yes. The answer to the second question is no. I don't know what the key is for at this point. I know what, I originally intended, and I know how that evolved, and then I knew where I was, where I would take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm as curious as anyone to see exactly what it turns out to be for.
Definitely, that should be cool.
So yeah, so we've talked about the casting. I'm just going to go through a list real quick. King of Queens, Mall Cop, Grown Ups, Zookeeper. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry, and Becky. Which one of these is not like the other? How do you go about, or were you part of the casting process in convincing, or did you even have to convince Kevin James to play a neo-Nazi psychopath?
I was not part of the casting process. I was kept in the loop on it. And the producers were great about keeping me in touch with everything that was going on with that, and who was reading it and who they were looking at for this role and that role. And originally they had signed on Simon Pegg to play the villain in this. So I think they were always kind of uh, looking to cast someone against type, for the role.
That would have
And,
been a very different movie.
That's what I was
It
just
would have
thinking.
been
I'm like, that would be
different,
so weird to see Simon Pegg in that role after seeing
I
that
know,
movie.
right? Yeah. No, it was, and that was, that was locked down for, for quite a while. And eventually it was months later. Um, they let me know that, they'd signed Kevin James to play the dad role, to play Becky's dad in the movie. And, lo and behold, Simon had to back out at the last minute, probably Mission Impossible or something came calling, and he had to leave. And then, Kevin had asked, can I read for the villain part in this? And they were like, sure. And he kind of blew everybody away, I think, and he certainly did on set. I know the first time, he came out in character.
Yeah, when I saw the casting, Jay's the one that turned me onto this movie a couple of months ago when I watched it, and my first thought was, "There's no way." No, I mean, we're talking about, a Wish.com version of America's Dad. This is like,
Honestly, dude,
your
I felt,
your uncle.
when I first heard it, yeah, I was like, I can't picture it. Like, I'm sure he'll be great. I hope he'll be great, but I can't see it. And it wasn't until I actually was on set and watched him bringing this character to life that I was like, oh wow,
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah,
this is
fantastic,
somebody else.
surprising.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I didn't
Um,
know if he was going to be, if he was really going to kind of ham it up and be over the top. And I was so relieved that he wasn't. It was so cool and just sort of nuanced and understated, and all of his delivery. And you kind of gradually, the thing I love about his performance is you gradually see him start to lose it a little bit more and more and more as the movie goes on, as he starts to kind of lose more and more control of the situation. He loses more and more control of himself.
yeah, it's kind of like a parallel with him and Becky, opposite sides of the coin, but she's kind of
Very much.
descending into madness, and he is as well, and both for
Right.
almost the same reasons.
Yeah, because
So-
of each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as casting goes, also it was another interesting thing. So whoever did the casting, fantastic job. Joe McHale, I felt like, just like on the surface, I love Joe McHale. So when he watches this, because he obviously will, I would have bought him more as a Nazi than Kevin James, and Kevin James is the dad. But they work so well because there's kind of like the awkward tension, and Joe McHale plays that better than most anyone else between Becky and her dad. And then Kevin James, of course, knocks it out of the park as the villain. So you already mentioned kind of maybe some questions before you actually see the acting. What was the moment where, when you saw the cast come together, you saw the scenes start to come together, where you were like, okay, this is going to be something not just in my head, but something actual tangible that's going to be enjoyable?
Yeah, no, actually, it wasn't. Honestly, honestly, it was not until I was on set my first day, which was like the second day of production. I think I was there, and the first scene that they shot when I was there was the fire pit scene where they're kind of torturing Joel with the skewers and trying to sort of draw Becky out of hiding. Um, and yeah, it was like, wow, I was, kind of perched up above on this rickety deck on the side of this house, this location that they found to shoot in. And I was up there with the audio guys, and so I had my ears on, and I could hear Kevin reading these lines. It was the part where he's like speaking into the radio. He's talking to Becky, so he was really quiet. But and then of course, when they're actually torturing Joel and burning his face and stuff, and he stabs him, and Joel's just like screaming all afternoon, getting this scene done. Yeah, it was amazing. That was it was like, wow, to see it all kind of, finally come together like that, and see it kind of brought to life by, all these professionals. There was, probably 100 people on the crew. It was quite something to see, man.
So you have the movie in your head, you write it down. something that's always kind of interested me about horror, especially the further in we get. And I mean, from, going from 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we're decades into horror genre. The scene with the eyeball coming out, I hate eye stuff. I can't touch my own eyes. If I have to have contacts, I'm just going to have to go blind. But I actually laughed at the scene when they bring the safety scissors to try to cut it. And I thought that's hilarious. And then my thought was, how do you think of that? So when you're writing this, is this in your head that you're like the gore, the things like that? Are you thinking about how you want things to happen? Is the safety scissors like something that pops into your head, or do you sit around with other people and you're like, okay, well, what could we do here? What could we do here to try to be different? Because it's so hard. Almost everything's been done, but I've never seen a scene like that. It was probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, just because of the absurdity of trying to cut his eyeball off with child's safety scissors.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite scenes in the movie too. And the eyeball bit. Initially, I it's hard to even remember now. Initially, I think I had written it so that his Hammond or Apex or one of his guys is like kind of holding it up and he's kind of sawing at it with like a serrated knife or something like that. I'm pretty sure it was one of the producers that suggested the scissors, the safety scissors. I was like, that's gold. That's perfect. And then the way it came together was amazing. And it's there's not a lot of I wouldn't say that there's a lot of comedy or funny elements in the movie, but just the way that scene came together and the way Kevin delivered it, and he throws the scissors and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah, it was just beautiful.
Yeah, whoever wrote that scene is clearly a psychopath, like just absolutely psychopath. So, when you were first writing Becky, and when the movie was starting to get made, did you have ideas in your own mind for sequels or a franchise or anything?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely had I had probably like a 15-page kind of treatment, that I'd written down for an idea for where I kind of saw the story going after the first movie, and and a much more kind of hazy vision beyond that, if God willing that there actually were going to be more of them, right?
So I'm curious, what are five or so of your most influential horror films? I'm going to take a wild guess by looking at your shirt and say The Shining's probably one of them.
Yeah, that's up there. The Exorcist is probably number one. I love all like the '80s Halloween, the original, and all the sequels with Daniel Harris and that came out in the '80s. Halloween, the original's up there. Alien, Dawn of the Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the classics, right?
All the greats.
Reason. Yeah.
What movie made you want to be a writer though?
Star Wars, definitely.
The original or just the whole first trilogy?
The original, the original trilogy that that I grew up with. That's what made me fall in love with movies and made me the kind of sparked the desire, I think, to be involved in some way in telling stories in that medium, right?
So did you ever think of yourself as kind of falling into this screenwriting career? What were you doing before that? And what does your family kind of think about this new path?
They all think it's pretty cool. My mom is not a horror person at all, but and she doesn't like anything terribly violent or gory. But she did watch Becky, the first one anyway. Kind of like through her hands, I guess. But yeah, no, it was before that, I was driving a forklift and and working in manufacturing, and I was a painter for a while, right? You know what I mean? Just paying the bills, doing regular stuff, all the while kind of
dreaming up ways to murder Nazis
Dreaming up-
with safety sensors.
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
What
Natural evolution.
So what I am curious if you put much credence in the theories with this movie. There's a theory out there, I was reading about it, because obviously they're neo-Nazis in the movie. They invade the house. There's a lot of things in the movie, and I was reading something, it may have been Reddit or somewhere. Someone pointed out like all these coincidences with Becky. Like at the beginning, she's doodling like an SS, and then like it's almost like there's a theory that I read some theory that like her mom could have been a neo-Nazi, died. They were coming to the house because their mom was a part of it. They didn't know that.
Right.
I'm just speculating. Have you heard this? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. That certainly was not my intent. Originally, in my original draft of the script, there was like a prologue scene that sort of explained how the key got to be there and how they ended up in prison over it. Yeah, and actually in the original script, it's kind of made clear that the house he was stashed did not belong to that family, right? It was somebody else's and just happens to still be hidden there. 10 years later when they kind of bust themselves out of prison and go looking for it, and lo and behold, there's new owners here. So that was originally the idea. The doodling, whatever she's drawing there early on, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I don't think it was supposed to be like an SS or anything like that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah,
what,
no, I've read that stuff too, and it always kind of makes me chuckle a little bit.
one final question that I had for you, I kind of alluded to earlier, is the kind of wild turn that Wrath of Becky takes at the ending, where they're instead of putting her what might more realistically be in a mental institution and then probably foster care till she's 18, right, after all that trauma,
right,
they offer her a job at like 16 years old to go into the CIA. And I assume that's probably not the direction you would have went with it. I'm curious where you would have leaned for the ending of that.
You would be correct. Yeah, my inclination with the sequel in general was to lean more into the horror elements. I wanted to kind of see her evolve into the monster that Apex kind of warns her about, right? That she could become. So
like Darth Vader, Anakin.
I was kind of
right,
thinking. I was kind of thinking Dexter too. Kind of bathed in blood and brought to.
Yeah. No, and the direction that they like. It was clear to me early on that they wanted to kind of go a little bit lighter with it, a little bit more lean into the comedy a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
The movie that that they wanted to, it was something closer to like a Black Widow or Harley Quinn type character than Jason Voorhees as or Angela Baker, which was kind of more the direction that I had envisioned Becky going in.
You would have just went straight horror with it.
Pretty much. Yeah. Start to blur the lines a little bit between who the heroes and the villains are, and really go all in. It would have been almost a slasher movie by the end of it.
Nice.
That would be an interesting direction to go with the third movie, to have her being like a serial killer or like a Michael Myers kind against neo-Nazis. Like they're just hanging out in their neo-Nazi house and all of a sudden they start dying, like a traditional slasher film. So who do you root for? Like they're not doing anything racist right then, but
only now she's also backed by the CIA.
Well, it's kind of like the First Blood syndrome in a way with Rambo, because like First Blood, the first movie, it was very like grounded and like there was like a psychosis and a PTSD, and then Rambo 2 and 3, he's an action star, right? He's
Right.
done. So I could see how it's like the studios a lot of times think differently than maybe like when you're writing it, what you envision. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's an interesting parallel. There's definitely a similar trajectory, at least it seems at this point.
All right, so that's going to be a wrap for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram. If you have Amazon Music, we have a playlist on there featuring songs and artists from the episodes we've done. So go check that out. Nick, thank you so much for taking some time with us, and we look forward to seeing whatever you do next. Like I said, I saw Becky. I didn't see it, but the day it came out, I pre-ordered. I bought it. I came home, watched it that day. I'm like, holy shit. This is fucking fantastic. So that's all I can say. Like movies like that are amazing. So we appreciate it. Signing off, I'm Jay with John, Kellen, TJ, and Nick. And until next time,
Keep it spooky. All right.
I said Lulu Adams.
I was like,
I even had it written down.
I questioned it for a second, but then I could see the Wilson behind your head.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, man.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, who's Lou? I remember the Hellbenders.
Yeah, Nick was being very Canadianly polite to not say anything.
Thank you. It's not like I have it
Adams,
in 2 fucking places in front of me.
To be fair, Jay's on how many CBD gummies right now?
0.
They're on him. He's
they
not
cancel
on
each
them.
other out 1 and 1.
Yeah. The higher you go, they start counting backwards. So, yeah.
I did have Adams though. Damn it.
Amateur hours.
Is there a
Amateur
Lulu
hour.
Adams? That sounds like a name.
Yeah, she's in that movie Hellbender that's on Shudder.
That's
They're actually going to come on a future episode. So
oh,
and talk more
Cool.
about it.
well, I'm glad
All right, well, Nick, thank
we
you
got
again.
to connect, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, no, man, this was fun. Thanks. I really appreciate the invite.
Yeah.
you.
If I ever make it to Nova Scotia, actually, without my wife ditching me, I will look you up.
Cheers. Absolutely.
What weeks out of the year is Nova Scotia actually warm enough for somebody from the United States to visit? Just asking for a friend.
Most of them, I would say, it's the winters aren't as harsh as they used to be. It's mostly rain, really. It certainly gets cold. We have like a really good cold snap probably somewhere in January or February even. And then, 8 weeks of rain. Summers are nice, ish. Yeah.
So you don't get like a foot of snow at any point?
Sometimes, yeah. So we can still get that much. Sometimes we can get, rarely. It's not, back in the day, I can remember as a kid, snowbanks way over my head, right? You don't see that as much anymore, but occasionally we still do get a good storm that,
We
just kinda levels
get
everything.
3 inches in Tennessee and the whole state shuts down.
Oh,
yeah.
No, no
two
toilet
inches.
paper, milk, or bread for anybody for weeks.
See, they don't make you guys buy snow tires, right? And,
No,
it's
not
No.
here.
It's actually the law. You have to have snow tires in winter here, and you have to take them off in the summer, right?
When I lived in the Pacific Northwest, that was where they started doing the chains on the tires. I'd never heard of
Yeah.
such a thing before then.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
roads have potholes just from them cleaning off the snow. If we had snow tires,
Oh.
our roads would just be gravel.
Yeah,
You,
pretty
you,
much.
you should see the roads here, man.
Man.
It's insane. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Nick, and thanks for joining our Facebook group. Yeah, we'll definitely throw as many. And if you ever have anything else to promote, let us know, and we'll hook you
All
up.
right, man. Yep. Hopefully
Absolutely.
soon. Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All
man.
right.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good
Cheers.
one.
Yeah.
Hey, Jay, I'm whispering in your ear. You look super fucked up right now.
Yeah, he does.
Hey, I
He
took
does.
half of one before, but it's not the same thing. It's like
I thought he was gonna freeze on that outro there for a second.
He was like,
Oh,
I'm pretty
words
sure
taste
he was
weird in my
traveling back
mouth.
from Pluto.
I just wanted to be suspenseful. That's all.
If you need
Um,
somebody in your film to play a pedophile, I'm just a pair of glasses away.
oh, wait,
The
what-
only man to volunteer
what-
for that.
is that your Halloween costume?
No, I it's not a secret. I'm going to try to pull off Freddy Krueger, and by Freddy I mean Freddie Mercury.
Oh, you're gonna trim it
Freddy
off.
Krueger. So yeah,
Oh,
well, I'll
that's
keep the
sick.
mustache,
Yeah.
but I've been doing this because a couple of weeks ago I trimmed my beard like real short, like 5 o'clock shadow short. I don't know if y'all remember, but I had it pretty short, and
Yeah.
both of my daughters were like,
Who's that guy?
No, don't like it. You can't do that ever again. So I'm doing it in baby steps. So I started at a 7, and one of my daughters was like, "You look different." And I'm like, "Thank you for noticing," because usually I get my hair cut, shave, and it's like, you did something? Nobody cares.
Right.
So then I went to a 5, and then it was very obvious that the mustache is mustaching way more than the beard. And now I'm on a 3. So if everything goes well for Halloween when I'm going with the girls, I'm going to have a half Freddy Krueger, half Freddie Mercury costume.
You're
That
almost
is
Ted
amazing.
Lasso. Almost.
Yeah.
I thought
just
about that. I thought
Just
about that
almost.
because I already look like a Wish.com
Actually,
version of him anyway.
You kind of got the
Yeah.
haircut already. Yeah.
Yeah, I could absolutely go Ted Lasso and just be done. Go to Walmart and buy a $20 costume. I've
Yep.
got the hat.
Yeah. Just wear like a polo shirt and khakis.
That would be a pretty good costume, honestly.
Yeah.
Where's my hat? I could bring like some darts
Where's my hat?
and talk about how much I hate tea.
Yeah.